Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with some more replays for Fiendsmith Mitsurugi. So I know I said recently that pure Mitsurugi is my go-to ladder deck, but actually since trying this variant out, I think this has definitely been my new favorite. One of the things that I really like about this deck, particularly the Fiendsmith variant, is its ability to really push through hand traps, and not just like the regular ones like Ash Blossom and Imperm like you would expect something like Mitsurugi to be able to do. This deck actually has quite a few plays through DROLL and Lockbird as well, which we're actually going to get hit with right here. But of course we're going to chain the Mitsurugi prayers to that. Yeah, a lot of these games for this video are going to be more going first games, but that's because I really, more than anything else in this video, wanted to highlight the ability to push through hand traps, even ones that have huge impact like DROLL and Lockbird, Nibiru, so on and so forth. So you're seeing here actually pretty much the main reason why I like this variant more than pure. If you get hit with the DROLL and Lockbird in pure, you might still have some lines depending on when you get drolled, but a lot of the time it is going to put a damper on your turn. But with this variant, you can always, as long as you've got at least two bodies, link off into Moon and then go into Fiendsmith plays. Here, even though we got hit with the Imperm on the Lacrima, I can still summon out the Druid Swarm and then link off with the Lacrima in order to make sequence. And even though my opponent hit me with 3 hand traps, well, one of them got hit with the Crossout, but even though we got hit with DROLL plus Imperm, we're still going to be able to end on a 3 material Appaloosa here, plus the Ash Blossom going into our opponent's 3-card hand, which is definitely still really, really good, you know, even though we got so many things negated. So yeah, I just really, more than anything, value, I think, the options that this build brings. I have changed my hand trap lineup, I think, since my first deck primer on this. If I remember right, in that first deck primer, I wasn't on Bestials or Lancia yet. But we are playing 1 Magnum Hut, 1 Druid Swarm, and 2 Lancia in this build. As always, the deck list will be at the end of the video here. So, alright, they're going to hit us with a Maxi. We do have the Ash Blossom for that, so that's good. Going into our turn 1 here, I'm going to lead with the Habakiri, which they are going to fire off an Ash Blossom against, and we're going to get to use our Call By here. Yeah, it's always nice to lead with both a Mitsurugi starter and a Fiendsmith starter. If I open something like Lurie or Lacrima, you can even just use your normal summon for that and not bother going into the Aramasa. I mean, all that would really get you that normal summon is an extra body in the long term anyway, and pretty naturally, the Fiendsmith stuff is going to give you a lot more bodies, so. Now using prayers here, we get to use the search effect of the Habakiri, going for the ritual, normal summon that Aramasa, gonna add the Murakumo. Again, if I had a Lurie or Lacrima, I would have normal summoned that, but since I have Engraver, I can just use that to get my Fiendsmith plays started. Engraver is like the one drawback of the Fiendsmith engine when it comes to DROLL and Lockbird. If you open with Engraver, you know, Engraver plus like pre-prep, for example, that's not really a hand where you're able to play around DROLL. You're gonna have to, you know, you can't really avoid it at that point. Okay, here in this game we're gonna get hit with the Nibiru, but as you probably know by now, Nib is not that great all the time against Mitsurugi. Oh, and here my opponent made a misplay. When I chained the Murakumo effect, they definitely should have discarded Nib, but most people don't. So that's why I chained the Murakumo. If I was playing against somebody where I was like really confident they knew that ruling, I probably wouldn't even bother chaining Murakumo there because I would want the big Nib token, and they can have the Nibiru, that's fine. But yeah, here we can still use the Murakumo effect in order to search and then revive. And I haven't even used my Engraver yet, so we still have that for us as well. But before I even do that, we get to summon the Futsu no Mitama no Mitsurugi here, which is a fantastic inboard piece. It just makes you so much harder to OTK, and also will give you guaranteed follow-up. Never mind that we have Great Purification as well, and our opponent's down to 1 card in hand. This is why, like, I wanted to show these replays. I had so many games laddering in Master Rank, by the way. These replays are in Master Rank. I had so many games that went like this with this deck. It's actually just wild. Alright, here is a going second duel against Malice. I remember that for sure. The reason I wanted to throw this one in here is really more than anything to highlight some of the new hand traps that we've put in against Malice and other decks. Here we open the Fuelos, but of course I'm referring to not just Lancia, but the Bestial monsters. Alright, here's the Fuelos. I'm definitely going to want to use that now before they link off the Dormouse into a Link 1. And my opponent's going to end up committing pretty hard into this Fuelos here, but it's not just going to be Fuelos, as my first draw is also going to be Max C. Yeah, so I've got the 2 Lancia and I've got the Nibiru. Really hoping to just dig for those and try to find those as early as possible, because I already have plays in my hand, but we do have the Magnum Hut as our first draw. And as I've highlighted in the past, Magnum Hut and other Bestial monsters are actually still pretty good against Malice. Here's one example of that. You can use them against the Link Decoder and deny them that body. Excuse me. Yeah, it's really easy to think like, oh, Bestial monsters, you know, those are used as extenders in Malice, so why would they be good against Malice? But in my experience, not just in this meta, but even in other metas, like previous seasons as well, I found the Bestial monsters to be very helpful. Yeah, I'm definitely going to throw out the Ash Blossom against this Chessy Cat, because I don't want them to keep extending from hand, and you're not going to get a ton of other opportunities to use Ash Blossom, although to be fair, Wicked is one of them. I just really didn't expect my opponent to go into Wicked here, mostly because they're under both Fuelos and Max C, but at this point I kind of realized, like, oh no, they're going to fully commit into playing through, the Max C plus Fua. And in spite of the fact that I have, 3 hand traps, the 2 Lances and Nibs that would just end my opponent's turn here, I actually just cannot find them at all. I'm going to go through like almost half my deck here, and spoiler alert, we're just never going to see them. So this is actually one of those rare situations where the Max C plus Fua is really coming back to bite me, because not only am I not getting my hand traps that I want to use to end their turn, but now I'm kind of running out of options like in my deck, right? Like, Mitsurugi really cares about summoning stuff from deck with Ritual. That Mirror is really nice to have in deck for pre-prep. Prayers need stuff to be able to search, and if you have too many of your engine pieces in hand, that actually does prove to be an issue. Alright, they're going to revive the Red Ransom here. Now, we may not have our Lancias or Nib, but we did draw another hand trap that will be useful against our Malice opponent, and that's going to be the Drua Swarm. But I'm waiting for better timing to use this Drua Swarm. At this point, I think my opponent might have been trying to deck me out or something, because they're going to go into Firewall Dragon here, and they're going to start using its effects now. Well, they're adding Max C. I imagine they cared more about having Max C than using the Firewall bounce on my turn, which is, I suppose, fair. Alright, now here they're going to summon Splash Mage, and this is, of course, one of the other opportunities where your Bestial monsters come up. You can use it against the Splash Mage target, and now my opponent doesn't really have that many good link options. They can't go into Allied Code with this board, and they're going to be really limited on what they can do. In fact, they end up linking off into a Heat Soul of all things, which I thought was really weird. They go to activate to draw, and then they concede. So, yeah, I never did find those Lancias or Nib off the Fua plus Max C there, but Bestials are still very, very good against Mouse, and I think that game demonstrates that pretty nicely. Although, I will admit, drawing a bunch of cards during their turn did... Well, you know what, I highlighted, it kind of didn't help in a lot of ways, except to find the Bestials specifically. Anyway, here we're going to lead with the Aramasa during the draw phase. They're going to hit it with an Imperm. This was a little bit greedy of me to try to, get this body and the search, but I also was fine doing it because I have the Habakiri in hand anyway, so it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. We're going to go for the Saji search here for the Ritual. Got Call By in case they have a Droll. We're going to throw out the Ritual here, but it turns out their other hand trap is a Dominus Impulse, which Call By is not really going to do a lot against, unfortunately. Yeah, you do lose out on the ability to play Impulse because we're playing Fiendsmith, but I think the ability to have plays through Droll and Lockbird is more important than having access to Impulse. Impulse is really, really good, don't get me wrong, but I do value the Fiendsmith engine a little bit more highly. Thankfully, they didn't really seem to have plays here. They're just going to set 3 and pass. So I'm going to normal summon DROLL, and speaking of Fiendsmith, now instead of having a dead hand like I would in the pure version, we can pivot into more plays here. I'm going to go into the Moon for Requiem, Requiem F. Of course, we're going to summon the Lacrima from our deck, and they're going to chain an Imperm, which I honestly expected. There's no way your opponent has 3 face downs and doesn't have something to negate, you know, one of your on-field effects here. Plus, they set it first and across from one of my back rows, so that made it pretty obvious that it was Imperm as well. I'll equip the Requiem just to get a little more extra damage in before passing back over to them. Alright, they're going to go for a Gold Sark, which makes me very glad I put Lancias in my deck. Going to fire that off here. And I'm pretty confident, well, I mean, I don't know. I was going to say I'm pretty confident this will end my opponent's turn because they obviously just top deck the Gold Sark. But it's Lancia against Malice. You know, that'll end your opponent's turn no matter what. Alright, going to go for the Magnum Hut, banishing my own Lancia here. And then I can link it off with the Lacrima in order to make Fiendsmith sequence and pick back up on my Fiendsmith line. We're going to go for the sequence F. Going to shuffle back Requiem and Moon. Remember that I don't have an Engraver in the graveyard, so I can't go for Desiree. But that's actually fine, because I would rather go for Fiendsmith's Lacrima and just try to end the duel right now anyway. Plus, I can revive the Lacrima and then dump Engraver that way. We can also link off the Engraver, or rather the Lacrima, for that Requiem we just put back, and then use that in order to summon the second Engraver from our deck as well. We can even equip to give another little attack buff. Not that we really need it at this point. Just want to get as many bodies on board as possible to make sure I had lethal here. And yeah, moving into battle phase, of course, even if my opponent did have a full 8,000 life points, we could still use the Fiendsmith's Lacrima burn to finish them off there. Alright, that was a more back and forth game. I wanted to include at least one of those in this video here. Let's see, here's our next duel, and now this hand is interesting because we opened with Saji plus Habakiri. I actually misplayed by leading with the Habakiri here, and I am going to pay for it as I go to search with the Aramasa. Oh no, sorry, I thought they had a Droll and Lockbird here. That's my bad. But I definitely should have led with normal summon Saji for sure. Gonna go for prayers to tribute to search and then summon, as well as get the Habakiri search. We combo with this deck the same way we combo with pure Mitsurugi, so I think I might go ahead and include that combo guide in the description below, just to be safe there. But that means that we're using prayers to tribute Habakiri from hand, so that way we can use Mirror to ritual summon it from the graveyard later. That's why I did it in that order. It's a little bit different than you would see for most Mitsurugi engines, but this, even though we trimmed down on the Mitsurugi package itself, this is more or less just a pure Mitsurugi deck that is using the Fiendsmith engine to help supplement its own plays. As you can see, and as you saw in earlier duels, we're still on the Mitama as well. Opponent's using Ghost Bell here against the Murokuma Revive, which I should have mentioned in my hand trap video. Actually, I wanted to, but forgot. A couple of honorary mentions for solid hand traps in this meta I will give to not only Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, but also Molch Army Meowls. Because Meowls is not only good against Mitsurugi, which will revive from Graveyard a lot, but also against Malice, which revives from Banish a lot. Even like a pure Ryziel deck will at the very least use Node to summon from Graveyard, so I think Meowls has some pretty interesting potential applications. Of course, I think I would pretty much always max out on a set of Fulos before I played any Meows. And then Ghost Bell, of course, being able to counter Mitsurugi very nicely. Yeah, so here we're going to go into a Desiree, just to get like an Omni Negate option. Well, a second Omni Negate option alongside the Great Purification. Because I'm going to get to make an Appaloosa anyway for the monster negates. Alright, we have a Droll and Lockbird on top of this board here. Always nice to end on. Alright, they're going to lead with the Ritual. I'm going to lead with Great Purification. Just in case they chained Call By on the Mitama here or something, I wanted to still have the Desiree option to negate that. Although you could make an argument for me using Desiree first and saving Great Purification for an effect that's not necessarily on field. But those are probably going to be monster effects, and I can just use Appaloosa against those anyway. What was my reasoning there? Okay, last duel for this video here. Gonna lead with the pre-prep. Yeah, this is one of those hands where I'm really anxious about Droll and Lockbird because we open with pre-prep, Engraver, and Aramasa. So we kind of have to play into Droll at least a little bit with a hand like this, but seems like they have every hand trap besides Droll here. They're going to Ash my pre-prep and then Imperm my normal summon Aramasa. Of course, thankfully we do still have the Engraver in hand, so we can just go for that. Adding the Tract. And then now we're going to get hit with a Droll and Lockbird. They really, I don't know. They did end up ending my turn anyway, but I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made that they really should have Drolled after the pre-prep and then Ash the Habakiri. I guess it's the same result either way, but... Or rather Ash the Saji. Well, that wouldn't have searched in that situation anyway, so never mind. Anyway. They're going to go for their own Fiendsmith engine here. I'm going to chain Maxi to the Lurie at this point. Start getting some draws. First draw is going to be a Lancio, which I don't really think much of because they're on Fiendsmith, so I just kind of assumed it was some Mitsurugi deck, but I had forgotten that there is actually a Fiendsmith deck in this meta that Lancia is quite good against. You'll see in a moment if you don't already know what I'm talking about here as they go to link off the Lacrima plus Engraver. And they're going to link these in a Nightmare Phoenix, but couldn't they have gone sequence for Fiendsmith Lacrima, Revive, and then had an extra body on board? Either way, it doesn't really matter. They're going to go for Nightmare Mermaid, Mermaid F, discard, to summon Orcus Nightmare. Not chaining Lancia yet because they don't have Babel on the field. If they had Babel in play, I would have fired off Lancia as soon as Orcus Nightmare was on the field. But since they don't have Babel, I can wait until they get it into the graveyard and let them commit a few more resources. But yeah, Lancia, I mean, obviously an amazing counter to Orcus. If they can't banish their cards out of the graveyard, they cannot get their engine going. And they can't do anything. On top of being under Max C, that's pretty brutal. But really, Lancia was the only hand trap we needed or got there. Alright, here is the updated deck list. Excuse me, the updated deck list. Yeah, I've been really liking the Lancias and the Bestial monsters. The Lancia I only have 2 of because I'm still a little iffy about committing to a full playset in this meta. I kind of feel like while there is a lot of Malice and Orcus, it's still a little bit more situational than Droll. As you tend to run into more Mitsurugi and Ryzeal decks, slightly more than the, Malice and Orcus. So if I had room for another hand trap, I would play the 3rd Droll before the 3rd Lancia here. But that said, I really like having the Bestials and the Nibiru still. I just like having a lot of options for my hand traps, especially in a meta like this where, there's a ton of different decks that are all countered by different things. I think that having a variety can be, a pretty good thing. Yeah, here in the extra deck, we're rocking Lina Chorozo. That way, if we opened only Fiendsmith stuff, we can pivot into Mitsurugi stuff. Otherwise, I think the rest of the extra deck is probably pretty standard looking, like what you would expect to see in like a Fiendsmith Mitsurugi extra deck, right? I'm considering cutting Caesar potentially for Exciton Knight, because not only would it be a good board wipe option, but it's also like Fiend and could help me pivot into Fiendsmith more easily off of 2 level 4s after the board wipe as well. And Caesar, I mean, I don't know. The thing is, Caesar is still really good against Mitsurugi because it negates 2 summon effects. It's not just a once per turn. So that said, I haven't summoned Caesar yet myself, so I'm a little bit up in the air about it personally. Alright, I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to talk about this list for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Hugely appreciate it. But let's go ahead and just move on now to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.